to do it. I will talk about migration skills and implications for economy and labor market, which is very broad in the whole thing. So I have mainly 4 points I want to mention. First, I want to point out migration and the economic effects. We have already talked about this, or we have heard about this. Then the second one is we have social effects, especially for low-skilled migration. And the third point I want to mention is how we can perhaps manage low-skilled migration. And the fourth one, I want to make 4 theses just for the discussion. So first, the economic effects. I don't want to say too much about it. So we have an aging society. We have heard about it, and we have perhaps 2 main answers for the rising age gap between population in industrialized countries and developed countries. First solution in a globalized world could be that capital flow into the developed countries, and the second one is migration of parts of the population. And well, the second one is that income gaps between countries can gain raises for global gains through higher productivity of labor. It can result in higher earning for individuals and companies, and offers financial gains to finance the welfare stage in the countries of migration. And it raises gains with the qualifications of the migrants. So if we have migrants coming into industrialized countries, they learn a lot about how work functions, and so when they are able to go back to their countries of origin, they also can raise productivity there. So this could be an effect, and this has an insignificant effect. We have all. I don't know, was it? We have an insignificant effect on wages in the countries. So this effect can rather be neglected. This is the result of many economic studies. And the third point is that capital and consumption in country of origin also rises. So this means when people go into or migrate into industrialized countries, they earn money and they transfer the money back into the country of origin, and this could also be a chance for these countries. This is not only a burden for the country, for the industrialized country, but it is a real chance for the countries of origin. In many developing countries, these inflows are larger than combined values of foreign direct investment or ODA. So this is, I think, a very important point and a positive effect. And the fourth point is that we have, this is not the low-skilled effect, but more or less the high-skilled effect, that we can have an innovation boost if people go to the innovative countries, if the innovative heads go to the innovative countries. But there are other further effects. These have been only the economic effects, and I think they are quite well, positive. But there are some further facts about immigration, especially of the low-skilled immigration. The first one is that low-skilled workers have less choices in selecting immigrant countries. So this is, in most cases, if we talk about high-skilled migration, these people can choose the country which give them the best potential to work, the best way to work, and they can change the countries year by year. But in low-skilled workers, they do not really have the choice. So they come to one country, select one country, and normally they are there. A second very important point is that irregular employment is more easily arranged for low-skilled. This means that if we have, there is the fact of migration, there is the fact of low-skilled migration into countries, and the question is if it can stop, or can it be stopped, or is it just a fact of globalization? And if the people go into these countries, they come if they are regular there or irregularly there. And for low skilled, it's easy to just to arrange jobs, and so. And this is also the third point. There is a demand for migration workers from the company side. You have this effect, especially in the US. The question is, will the migration be legal or illegal? And a fourth point, which is very important in European countries, that immigration follows in large part non-economic rationales. This is one of the first point, the political, so asylum, and the second one is the family reunification. And a fifth point I want to mention is, which is a problem of migration. There are winners and losers of migration. So, in economic sense or in macroeconomic sense, there are only gains of migration, as we have seen, but there are on the individual level, there are winners and losers. For example, workers with comparable skills in the industrialized countries, they are confronted with a higher competition within their labor market. Very often, immigrants work in low-skilled jobs, even if they are higher skilled. So the example is, well, in the UK, where we have, well, a very high immigration from Eastern Europe. These people are very high skilled, but they make low-skilled jobs in the UK because they earn much more money. And so they are very productive in these jobs. They are more productive than, for example, the UK people, which are in these jobs, which are normally have lower skills. So I want to show only some statistics. As I said, low-skilled workers, it is very hard to regulate low-skilled migration. The question is, what can be regulated? And my thesis is that there is a possibility to regulate the high-skilled migration, and therefore to influence the share of high and low skilled. What we can see here, it has already been mentioned. Canada has a very high share of high skilled immigration of 9%. Switzerland, for example, from 5%, and in the EU, where we do not have this proactive immigration policy for high skilled, we only have around 2%. A second point is of this irregular and regular migration in the US, for example. We have 10.5 million Mexican immigrants yearly, and an inflow of 400,000, and roughly 60% are illegal. So this is well, statistics for the argument that I said that the people come into the country even if they are legal or illegal. So one should ask if it should even be allowed or proactively force people to come into countries, because then you have the possibility to have an impact on the people which are coming in the country. And if you have illegal migration, you do not have any influence on the shares of the skill level. Another point which has already been mentioned by Václav, it is a very big problem, the social effects of migration. This is the main restrictive argument. We have an ethnic diversity which is, well, as we can see in the US or in Canada, if it's handled in a good way, it is a valuable asset for advanced societies in the long run, if it is handled in a proper way. But there are restrictions in the short and mid-term, as we can see in many European countries. We have heard about it already. There are very high fears of being swamped by foreigners in many countries. And there is, especially in Germany, you have the case, but also in many other countries, a lack of appreciation, because you have, on the one hand, high unemployment with skill shortages, which is often an argument for economic immigration. And this is very hard to understand for the people. And there's one thing with it, which is I think a very interesting point of a very good study by Putnam, which is already published. He says that he talks a lot about social capital, and he finds out that diversity and immigration potentially reduces trust, social solidarity, and even this social capital. And this is not only the case in areas where you have a high mix of people, but even in if a city has a high immigration rate, and you have a kind of well, in the US, a US area, even there you can observe that you have a reduction in trust and social solidarity. So this is a very big problem there. And just one statistics in these things. Oh, I only have 5 minutes. Sorry. Which shows this problem. Do you think migration by workers within the European Union has made a positive, negative, or neutral effect? I think it's quite clear what you can see here. There is a very high distrust in the population about migration, which is, on the other hand, economic studies, I think for Spain, shows that 1/3 of the economic growth in the past 10 years is, well, not caused, but immigration has a very high impact on this. But this is not seen from the population side. When we talk about demographics, which is the main point, I only go shortly about on this question. We see that companies see that this demographic change is a very, very important point, and that they want to handle it actively is well, a clear sign in these figures. And one possibility to manage it on the country level is the UK, how UK acted with the in 2004, when the Eastern European countries came to the European Union, most of the member states banned the workers from their labor markets, but the UK, together with Ireland and Sweden, they invited them, and they have very much of the economic growth in this time was driven by these immigrants. And what we can observe there, they invited them, and I think this is a very important point. And they have the right to stay in England, not for 1 year, 2 years, but for as long as they want to. And the new study shows that these immigrants do not want to stay in the country for that long, but they want to go back to their countries of origin. So it's for sometimes they come to the country, earn the money, but then they are going back. So it's not always the case that immigrants want to live for their whole life in these countries, but if they have the possibility to go back and or change between the countries, they often use this possibility. The second point of which I wanted to mention, and I have to do it very fast, is that managing migration, temporary agency work, so for example Adecco, gives a very good point to just actively manage a migration, because it is assured that migrant workers find work in the countries. The relocation can be managed by this temporary agency work. The national law and collective labor agreements are applied, and working conditions on cross-border temporary agency work are well protected when temporary agency work is involved. So this is also one of my points with which I want to conclude. These are mainly 4 points or 4 theses: that migration is a consequence of actual globalization phase, therefore it cannot be stopped. Neither that's based on human rights nor the economic-driven migration. It's an important driver to enforce productivity in the country of origin and in immigrant countries. So there is quite a positive thing about migration. From an economic perspective, instead of restricting migration, countries should even ease the immigration. Companies need low-skilled workers, and they will arrive anyway. This is one point, and the question is only how and to which conditions. And third, it is difficult even to influence low-skilled migration. The third point I want to state is that managing migration can be done by managing the skill mix. So by actively ease high-skilled migration, because the low-skilled migration will be there in any case. And the fourth point is that private stakeholders like temporary agency work should be involved, because they can help to manage this migration thing. So these are the 4 points. Thanks a lot.
Christoph, as you're leaving, I'm going to also ask Stephen to come up, and so that we have a fairly quick transition. Thank you for keeping on time. One question that I had for you, and that is, you talked about the migration, people coming and going. I'm assuming that you're talking mostly in this case about unskilled labor, and that the higher skilled labor is more staying. In fact, have you seen that to be the case?
Sorry, the last sentence?
That the higher skilled labor is staying in place, whereas unskilled labor, the migration, they're coming and they're going back to their country of origin.
No, that's not the point I meant. So I think the important point is what are the rules of migration?
Correct.
If it's low-skilled or high-skilled, it doesn't matter. If you in the high-skilled case, if you have the restrictions, for example, high-skilled migration for 2 years or 3 years or whatever, and then they have to go back to the country, the high-skilled, you can observe that these people, which are, I'm talking about high-skilled people, which are coming to the country, they work they try to stay in the country for more than these 3 years, and then they do everything one possibility is to marry or to integrate or to find another contract or whatever. But if you allow them to stay in these countries as long as they want to, I'm talking about high-skilled, they have the incentives, or they could have the incentive to go back to their country of origin after 1 or 2 years and help there, if they have the possibility after 5 years to go back to, for example, the UK. So if they have the possibility to breathe in a way, this is a thesis of me, one of my main theses, that if you unrestrict migration from time, it's more likely that people go back to their country of origin. So it's a bit,